Over the last few years, we have heard that electric cars are the future and that they are more environmentally friendly. But are they? Cars have been the most common form of transport for over 100 years and play a massive part in taking billions of people from A to B every single day. Today, we will be discussing the future of automobiles, the role that electric cars play in this, and the advantages and disadvantages as the world transitions into a greener and more renewable future. There has been a long-standing debate about whether electric cars are more environmentally friendly than diesel and petrol vehicles. And in this chapter of the video, I will present some statistics from studies that answer this question. The answer is yes, kind of.
What do you mean by that?
You see, the question of whether electric cars are more environmentally friendly than diesel and petrol vehicles is a multifactorial question, which I like to think of as a closed-loop system. Let me show you what I mean. Here, we can see the CO2 emissions from mining the raw materials required to manufacture the electric vehicle and battery pack that goes inside the vehicle at the top of the loop, which is connected to the CO2 emissions of the electric vehicle during operation at the right side of the loop. The CO2 emissions of the electric vehicle during operation is connected to battery and EV recycling at the bottom of the loop, which is finally connected to energy sources that generate the electricity powering electric vehicles at the left side of the loop. In this chapter of the video, we will be talking about the CO2 emissions of the electric vehicle during operation. You see, combustion engines in diesel and petrol vehicles emit a lot of carbon dioxide, and electric vehicles not only remove carbon emissions during the operation of the vehicle, but in many cases operate at a much higher efficiency overall. To truly understand why this is, we have to understand how combustion engines and electric motors work. Combustion engines, as suggested by the name, have to burn compressed fuel and air ignited by an electrical spark, creating a small explosion in the cylinder which pushes a piston downwards and creates rotary motion by spinning a crankshaft that turns the wheels, and a byproduct of this reaction is, you guessed it, CO2. On the other hand, electric vehicles use the electrical energy stored in the battery pack to power an induction motor instead, which uses a spinning electromagnet which reverses the poles at constant intervals to turn a crankshaft once again, which turns the wheels as a result. This distinct reason in the way that combustion engines and electrical motors work is the reason electric cars emit less CO2 during the operation of the vehicle. However, the question of whether this means they are more environmentally friendly is a more complicated question, as I will get into next.
You smart, you loyal, you're grateful. I appreciate that.
Next, coming back to our closed loop, we will move on to energy sources generating the electricity powering electric vehicles. This is admittedly an area that needs a lot more work done in order to reduce carbon emissions, as most energy used to power electric vehicles are generated from the burning of fossil fuels. In the UK specifically, around 60% of energy is generated from fossil fuels and 40% is generated from renewables, whereas in the US, it's a lot worse, where 80% of total energy production comes from the burning of fossil fuels and only 20% is generated from renewables. However, the issue of energy sources and fossil fuels is one that is easily fixable, as the solution to this is clear, and that is investment. More investment from governments and the private sector into renewables is required in order to drastically reduce carbon emissions and get closer to achieving net zero. Moving on to the next part of the closed loop system, we have battery recycling and raw materials. Battery recycling is also an area that needs a lot of work, as to clear up a common misconception. The reason a lot of used batteries end up in landfill is not that batteries cannot be recycled, as on average over 80% of the internal elements of a battery can be recycled, but that there are currently not enough battery recycling facilities and the necessary infrastructure to process and recycle all these batteries and meet demand. However, there are many companies in the private sector that are stepping up to this challenge as a business opportunity and tackling the shortage of battery recycling facilities, such as Redwood Recycling, founded by a former executive of Elon Musk's Tesla. And with the right support in government funding towards the private sector, this problem is also easily solvable in the long-term future.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk.
Another largely contested argument surrounding electric vehicles is the mining of raw materials such as lithium, cobalt and nickel in order to manufacture the battery packs that go inside of electric vehicles. This is sort of a redundant argument, as the difference between EVs and ICEs in this case is that lithium, cobalt and nickel used in battery packs can be repeatedly recycled over lifetimes, whereas burning petrol and diesel in order to power a vehicle cannot be reversed. And whilst this takes place, these fumes are released into the atmosphere, which then leads to things like climate change and global warming, which despite the refusal of many conspiracy theorists is a very real problem and has increased the frequency a lot of natural disasters taking place as we have seen in the last decade, which is ultimately detrimental to humans and the environment. Furthermore, MIT have done a study a few years ago that concludes that even considering the carbon emissions of mining the raw materials required to manufacture EV battery packs, EVs still produce a significantly less amount of carbon emissions in comparison to petrol and diesel vehicles across their lifetimes, which means that in this case, EVs are more environmentally friendly than petrol and diesel vehicles.
What do you do to relax? What do you do to switch off?
I make buses.
You make models of buses?
I make models of buses.
So they're going to be in Downing Street?
Okay,
that's what you do to enjoy yourself?
I paint the passengers enjoying themselves.
Okay, great.
On the wonderful bus.
Great.
Finally, in the last chapter of this video, we will cover the price and performance of electric vehicles. The price of a car is very important, as in order for electric cars to become an option for working class people, they need to be affordable enough, and this has become a reality over the last 10 years, as innovation in the production of EVs and the manufacturing of the batteries used inside of them has driven costs down to as low as £20,000 to £30,000, and even cheaper in the used market, which is now starting to make electric vehicles accessible to most people of median incomes in many Western countries. Performance in electric vehicles has also improved dramatically, as many electric vehicles can now do over 300 miles on a single charge, which is more than enough for most people living in urban areas and doing short daily commutes, which statistics show is the case a majority of the time. A notorious area of debate from EV critics is EV charging, which has also seen massive improvements over the last decade thanks to innovations from Tesla in charging technology, where electric vehicles can now be charged up to 80% in as short as 15 minutes, and this technology will become mainstream for EVs moving forward, making this argument redundant once again. And it's also worth mentioning that most EV owners have a charging plug for their EVs that they use to charge their EVs overnight at their own homes. So most of the time, as long as you're aware of how much charge you have left, you can just charge at home overnight without having to charge at an EV charging station or being subject to increasing gas prices, which have been an increasing benefit of EVs, especially for the last year.
Nice.
Overall, EVs are set to become the future of transport, as most automotive companies are set to shift all their vehicle productions to electric vehicles from 2030 onwards. Furthermore, to answer the main question of whether electric cars are really saving the environment, the answer is, in theory, yes. But in order to make this a reality, there is only one major problem left to make electric cars truly and definitively more environmentally friendly than petrol and diesel vehicles, which is shifting the energy sources used to generate the electricity used to power electric vehicles entirely to renewables, which will become a reality with increased government investment into renewables moving forward. So that concludes my video on electric vehicles and whether they are truly saving the environment. This video took me over 15 hours to research and make, so if you found this video informative, I would highly appreciate it if you could show your support by hitting the like button, charging the subscribe button, turning on the notifications bell to never miss out on any future uploads, and dropping a comment below this video on whatever technology related videos you guys are interested in me covering next. But without further ado, I shall end this video. So guys, keep on making smart decisions, and I shall see you in my next video.